Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Warning Track Power. My name is Eric Reining.
And I am Ian Fullington.
And we are a little bit behind schedule. I think our last podcast was a little over 2 weeks ago. So we're kind of just checking base. I know Ian's pretty busy with his life. What are you doing right now with law school, Ian?
Finals. Basically, I get 100% of my grade in the next 2 weeks, and so I am burying myself underground and not coming up until 2 weeks. First exam's on Monday, and I have my last exam 2 weeks from today. So I've got a bit of a road ahead of me.
So you've just been a recluse lately, basically.
More or less. I mean, yeah.
It's a good life.
Lots of coffee.
Right.
Lots of reading. Debatable.
Someone's got to do it. Anyway, back to baseball.
Let's talk some baseball, Eric.
Yeah, man. The Rangers are currently 14-7, I believe. We're just starting a series in Minnesota tonight. I gotta tell you, Ian, I was not very... I don't know if... I mean, I'm sure the Boston Marathon tragedy had something to do with it, but I just haven't gotten up for the season yet. I don't know. How do you feel about that?
I mean, kind of. I mean, I've gotten pretty excited. If you didn't get excited for Yu Darvish's flirt with perfection, I'm not sure what's going to get you excited about baseball. But this season's definitely had its moments. I think it's kind of reinforced the fact the last 3 seasons the Rangers have been long seasons. Last year was kind of a laborious year. This offseason there was way too much made out of way too little. And so I guess it's kind of a false start in some sense. But you know what? The Rangers got up and they're ready for baseball. They're doing pretty well, Eric.
Yeah. I mean, you can't be in a better position right now than first place, and the Rangers are there. So, like, what more could we ask?
Complain.
Yeah, exactly. And I gotta tell you,
they're the only team. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, man.
I was just gonna throw out this little nugget that they're the only team in baseball who has not lost 2 games in a row. For what it's worth, these random, pretty useless stats, but they're stats, so there.
Yeah, I've had a hard time so far this year. Just the insecurity involved in having, like, you know, if I say something good about a player, it's always like, yo, small sample size disclaimer, bro. You know, like, I always have to mix that in because I have a hard time taking people seriously that make a lot out of, like, you know, Vernon Wells' hot start or, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
But with that said...
but we're kind of getting to that point where the small sample size argument starts to diminish a little bit. Pitchers are getting 5 or more starts under their belt. Hitters are getting significant numbers of at-bats. Basically, it's long enough for a slump to turn into a streak and a streak to turn into a trend. And so this is when baseball starts to kind of get a little more interesting.
There's no more small sample size. It's just a sample, you know? It's been a month, and, I mean, Yu Darvish... I mean, I hate to start talking about Yu Darvish so quickly, but, I mean, he's the best pitcher in the American League right now. I think hands down. I was looking the other night because, of course, he dominated the Angels again last night, and he had 11 strikeouts in 6 innings, I believe. But his xFIP on the year is 2.03, and his ERA is 1.65. So we're not talking about a guy that's had like a bunch of luck, you know, to have a 1.6 ERA right now. Like, it's totally legitimate.
He's putting up video game numbers. It's ridiculous. So what are we going to talk about today, Eric?
We're just going to get into the Rangers, talk about the season, talk about the American League, the National League, what's impressed us, and, you know, where we might be at when you officially come back from finals. How does that sound?
Okay, so this is just kind of like hey, we're still here, and we're just going to kind of give an overview.
I hate to call it like a filler
just so
podcast,
everyone who's... Yeah, I think for everyone who's listening, we'll start getting back into more discrete issues once I return from my self-imposed exile. That's when we should really dive in. There should be some more storylines that come up. I mean, right now, you can tell that even beat writers on a national scale are kind of scrounging for scraps. They're not exactly sure what they can write about, and they're forced to use these small sample sizes too. But after the sabbatical's ended, we should have a nice... We'll put out some good content, get some really... we'll take your feedback. We'll probably revisit the draft issue because I think that's very interesting.
Especially with the draft coming up in June.
Yes, especially that. And because I got some good nuggets from the BP event, which I attended this past Sunday. But that's to keep you on the edge of your seats for now. We'll go ahead and just kind of, with the disclaimer that the small sample size is becoming a sample size. Eric, who do you think is having the best season so far, league-wide? I mean, I guess this is obvious, but go ahead.
I don't know. I think there's a few players that have done really well. I mean, Justin Upton, I would say, is probably the most impressive. Yeah. I wouldn't say hands down, but I mean, he's showing what a lot of people thought he would be this year. Last season was kind of an aberration, and the people who made everything out of his attitude issue, whatever. Who cares about attitudes if you are, hitting a home run every other game? It's ridiculous. If you provide production, nobody cares how you act, really.
I mean, I agree. Production, I think there's an old adage, and it's a cliche, and I agree with it. Winning cures all evil, and if there's naysayers, it will make them go away. It's kind of interesting though when we start talking about attitude. It brings up something that I actually talked with Jason Cole and Jason Parks about. See how I like to relate this back right away.
Just a casual name drops, no big deal.
Yes. Anyway, there'll be more about the BP event later and how awesome it was. But Parks and Cole basically kind of talk about it a little bit. Everything that's not listed as far as a 2 to 8 scale on an evaluation of a player, whether they have some sort of an attitude problem, what's their makeup look like, if there's anything that's between the lines in the scouting report. And more times than not, if it's not mentioned or if there's not rave reviews about this player's baseball intelligence, there might be some sort of a makeup issue or there might be some sort of an attitude issue. And so while I don't think that Justin Upton necessarily is a head case or an attitude problem waiting to happen, I think he wanted out of Arizona badly. And I think he's in the best possible environment he could be in to thrive. Not saying he wouldn't be just as good in Arlington, but I think we can see that sometimes production can mask subliminal issues. I think with Josh Hamilton, when all goes well, everything's fine, and Josh Hamilton humble brags all the time. When everything's not going well, it's pretty obvious. And I will be interested to see how this season plays out, because players will go through lulls, players will go through cold streaks, and it's going to be a true testament to how well this Atlanta team is set for the long run if Justin Upton can keep a cool head on his shoulders.
Yeah. And according to Josh Hamilton, if he gets in a slump, that was God's plan. That's not his fault.
But then he'll casually laugh it off later and say, what happens if I didn't take those 2 months off?
Yep.
Ha ha, LOL.
There you go.
Okay, so why don't we look a little bit... I didn't answer the question, but I'm going to agree with you because I want to talk about the Rangers.
Yeah, what the hell was that, Ian?
I don't know, but if I'm going to choose a player league-wide who I think is doing really well, just real quick, Matt Harvey on the Mets, man, that guy can throw a baseball.
Definitely.
I didn't really think of him as an ace, but if he can sustain what he's doing now, I think he can be a really, really, really good pitcher for the Mets.
He's not even the best pitching prospect they have. I mean, he's only supposed to be their number 2. Behind Zach Wheeler.
I think... Yeah, Zach Wheeler. Mm-hmm. But I think he's putting up ace numbers now. It's just a matter of whether they're sustainable.
Right.
Anyone can throw a great game.
Exactly. I mean,
anyone can throw 2 great games. Aces throw good games consistently.
He's going, first time through the lineup, second time through the lineup, third time through the lineup, and once he goes first, second, third time through the entire league, there's going to be a book on him, and hitters will adjust, and then he'll make his adjustment, and we'll see. But right now he looks like he's a top of the rotation pitcher.
Yeah, well, I think he's one of those special pitchers where his floor is actually pretty high, too. I kind of allude to this with, I think his ceiling's higher than Shelby Miller, but I think Shelby Miller is one of the safest pitching prospects out there in baseball, and I really wish the Rangers would have gotten him from the Cards. Shelby Miller goes out there and puts up workhorse-like numbers as a rookie. I'm very impressed with how he started. I think he has a floor of a number 3 at the very lowest. He's a very consistent, solid pitcher. I could see him being like a Max Scherzer without the strikeouts, but could probably eat up more innings. If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
he'd be a really good. He could be a really great complement to Adam Wainwright if he can really ascend through that pitching staff.
With young pitchers, it all comes down to the ability to throw strikes. So, if if Matt Harvey, if Shelby Miller, they can strike guys out. It's just a matter of, limiting walks, limiting pitch counts, going deeper into games, accruing more value. It's a snowball, and it's great.
Yeah, you can have the nastiest stuff in the league, but if you can't consistently command it, and if you can't string together good games and good innings and clutch situations, then you're not going to play ball. I mean, it comes down to if you can pitch, you're going to be a good pitcher. And I'm using pitch in a really broad sense, but it encompasses all aspects of it, not just having a sick slider, but it encompasses being able to control the slider, knowing when to throw it, things like that. But let's talk about the Rangers, Eric.
Yeah, last thought on that. It's kind of...
Go ahead, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're good. It's like last year, Darvish, especially during the first half, he walked a ton of hitters. And everybody was saying, wow, if this guy can throw strikes. Well, this year he's basically cut his walks in half, and he's striking more batters out. He's much better even than he was last year, and last year he was great. I mean, he's on pace for a 10-plus WAR season right now, according to Fangraphs. But
I mean, yeah, he's putting up video game like
it's ridiculous.
Numbers. That guy's just insane. Yeah. Have you seen the GIF that's been put out of you? This is a nice segue. Have you seen the GIF that's been put out of Darvish throwing 5 pitches at once in the different directions the balls go?
I have not. Where is that?
Eric, how have you not seen that? That thing's viral. Just go on Twitter, and I think Jamie Newberg will have probably retweeted it. The guy was actually hired by Fangraphs today. That's how impressive this GIF is.
Oh, wow.
It shows Darvish's 4-seam, his 2-seam, his slider, a second slider, and that slow curve that he made Mike Trout look silly on last night. But it shows them all at the same time overlapped with each other. And it's absolutely incredible, Eric, how consistent Darvish is with his release point. Because they're all overlapped. They're all superimposed upon each other. And for every single pitch that Darvish throws, the ball comes out of his hand at the same exact point, at the same exact height.
Yeah.
If you had a 3-dimensional graph there with all your different planes, he would be pinpoint accurate every single time if you were to plot that on there. And that's just absolutely incredible to see. It's really one of the coolest GIFs of all time. I'm saying it's a cool GIF. Imagine if you're the batter and that's what you have to see.
Yeah.
And that doesn't even show Darvish all of his arsenal. He has at least 2 more pitches in there too. Anyway, Rangers.
Okay.
I want to say early season impressions and things, but I think I'd kind of like to go into individual performance a little bit more. Aside from Darvish, who on the Rangers has put up pretty good numbers to start the season? Okay, let's actually qualify that. Aside from Darvish and Berkman, because I think we'll both agree those 2 guys have been very good to start the year, who has put up good numbers, or maybe beyond the numbers, who has had a good start to the season for you?
I'll go outside the box because Ian Kinsler and Nelson Cruz, I think, are both equally doing well. Well, Nelson Cruz has had a couple, few games in a row that's been nice, but Leonys Martin, I think he's picking it up right now, and I like what I see, especially with the extra base hits with him. I mean, he's a gap-to-gap guy who could hit 10 home runs a year right now.
I think he could get to 15.
Yeah, I mean, somewhere in that range. I try to always be a little more conservative than liberal, but he's a high beta player. I mean, he could produce a lot, or he could totally suck, and Craig Gentry will have to be the guy. But right now, I think he's playing pretty well, and our center field platoon is, I think, really, really dominant.
No, I totally agree. I was actually at the game when Martin hit his first home run. And again, I'm relaying a lot of information that Parks and Cole talked about, but I can't emphasize how smart these guys are and how awesome it was to watch a baseball game next to these guys. But they were talking about how these Cuban prospects typically need a couple years in baseball before they can really start to hit their stride. And Martin would be hitting his stride this year, next year, if that really holds true to form, which I don't see why it wouldn't. Right. I think this guy's going to be a really good center fielder. He's not going to put up numbers that are going to really jump off a page at you, but they're going to jump off the page in the sense I think they're going to be really consistent. I like Martin. I've always been a big fan of his. I echo your thoughts. I think he's putting up good numbers. Yeah. I think Tanner Scheppers has had a really good start to the year. Tanner's calling card is a matter of if he can be consistent or not. And we've seen that sometimes in game where he's come out with fire and then he's kind of just lost his command for a minute. Right. But I think he's really making a strong push for a back inning role, and I hope he holds up. My biggest fear is that his arm's going to fall off. But I like Tanner Scheppers. I like what he's brought to the table this year. He almost seems a little bit more fiery. I don't know if that's the right word, but the movement on his fastball has been pretty wicked this year. And you'll know within the first 2 or 3 pitches if Tanner's got it. If he's throwing 95 or above, he's got it. If his fastball's coming in at 90 to 91, it's going to be dicey. But Tanner Scheppers, when you're on, man. I think he's doing great.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Who's disappointed you? Oh, go ahead. You want to talk about Tanner?
Well, just observations about the bullpen. I don't know if you've picked up on this at all, and I don't even know if I'm making something out of nothing. But I noticed this because I was at the game in Anaheim on Tuesday. Alexi Ogando went 7 innings, and then the first batter he faced in the 8th, he hit him. Ron Washington pulled him right there at 98 pitches and brought in Robbie Ross. And Robbie Ross ended up pitching the rest of that inning, and then the 9th, and then he got 1 out in the 10th, and then they had to bring in Joe Ortiz. Point is, Ron Washington's been using his relievers for multiple innings at a time. Tanner Scheppers pitched 2 innings in the first game. I don't know how you feel about this, but I kind of like it. I mean, these are good pitchers with good stuff, and why limit them to just 1 inning at a time, you know?
Yeah, I do have a cautionary tale on this, though, Eric. It's my concern is he's going to run these pitchers into the ground. We saw it with Robbie Ross last year, and early season on, we're already seeing it with Joe Ortiz. If you've noticed, he's used Ortiz a lot. And part of what makes these bullpen pieces so good is that they're fresh, they're not used a lot, and they don't get overexposed. And if you're trotting Ortiz out there for 70, 80, 90 innings a year, that's a lot for this guy, and he's not really pitched that much in the minors.
I don't think he's going to...
My concern is that...
I don't think he's going to pitch Joe Ortiz that much. Last year, Robbie Ross only had 60 innings, and he missed a month, Not that many innings.
I know, he needs to be conservative with these guys. If you're going to run anyone into the ground, you need to run Frazier and Lowe into the ground, because those guys are going to be cut here pretty soon. But I do have a big concern with the overutilization of our bullpen. Part of that's because Tepish was hurt that one game.
Right.
The other part of that is Ron Washington really likes to use those lefties in the pen.
Yeah.
I would be more okay using Kirkman in a multi-inning situation if Kirkman could ever figure it out. But okay, there's a cautionary tale. Here's the other side of that coin. Martin Perez is coming back and Colby Lewis is coming back. What does that mean? That means you're likely going to get more innings out of your starting rotation, whether it's Perez or Lewis, and that means you're going to have help in your bullpen, whether it's Lewis or Perez. I think it's going to be Martin Perez in the bullpen. But yeah, I'm okay with it now. Now, if we get to July 1st and things are still real dicey and Soria's not really making a strong case to be back, I don't know, man. I things could get dicier then. So we'll have to see. But again, cautionary tale. I don't want to use these guys too much, and I just think Washington should be more aware of putting these guys into games and which arms that are basically expendable commodities at this point.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm just, I guess, of the belief. I kind of like this new thinking, I guess, in general. And, Ron Washington is not a forward thinker, so I don't know if this is like a conscious decision he's making to leave them out there for longer. But I kind of like the idea of using pitchers for longer stints at a time because I think it keeps arms fresh for other games. So if you use Tanner Scheppers one night for 2 innings, he sits the next game, and then you'll have a fresh arm that would have pitched an inning the night before, and he pitches 2 innings instead. And it goes on like game situations, and there's very game specific tactics you have to whether you put in a loogie or a righty, whatever. But yeah, it was just something I'd like to see it continue. I think it would be nice, but I don't really think we're
really
talking.
Saves. Go ahead, finish your thought. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting a lot.
Cool. No, I'm that's pretty much all I have to say anyway.
I was gonna say, do you know what really saves bullpen arms the best?
Good starting pitching.
Yeah, you do know. Yes. That's kind of been my gripe with Alexi Ogando, and I realize we've kind of gone off on a tangent here, but I think you had an article on Nolan Wrighton about this, but Alexei has problems pitching deep into games. And I don't think it's necessarily I don't think he's consciously not trying to. I think he's really trying to get guys out quicker into counts. But I don't think Alexei has a third pitch or a strikeout pitch necessarily. Like Yu Darvish has that slider. I mean, let's be honest. Yu Darvish has every pitch he wants to strike someone out on. He sets the table. But
Yu Darvish has 5 out pitches.
Yeah, Alexei Ogando's fastball command has not been great this year. If he doesn't have his fastball command, he's gonna have trouble getting guys out. And so your 5 or 6 inning starts from him are a little bit disconcerting. But again, like you said, we have bullpen arms to spare, and we're gonna have Colby and Perez come back.
Right, and the argument I made in the Alexei Ogando article was exactly what you just said. I mean, he doesn't have even his slider isn't that great of an out pitch, because it's so inconsistent. If you have 3 balls and Alexei on you, and Alexei Ogando's pitching, you pretty much know he has to throw a fastball because that's the only pitch he can really command effectively. And he's looked really good. He's had a dominant slider, and he's had a really good get me over first pitch curveball. Those pitches are nice, but his fastball's still the only one you're really sitting on when you get in these crucial counts. And until he throws his off-speed pitches for strikes, guys are just going to keep riding him out and taking the 3 or 4 walks a game or whatever.
No, I agree. I just want to point out in that last thought you had, you said something about having 3 balls and riding someone out. So I'm sorry. That's all I'm thinking about.
It sounded so terrible when it was coming out. Just loose jargon and. Yeah.
Yeah, you're digging your hole deeper right now.
Yeah, and now you're talking about digging holes deeper.
Yeah, Eric, let's move on. Who is the bigger
All right, okay.
I don't know if this podcast is full of want or if it's full of wet.
It's just homoeroticism at its best.
We'll let the you know what? It's probably sparkle. That's what it is. It's a lot of sparkle right now. But we'll let the listener decide what it has the most of. Okay, Eric. Let's peer deep into our crystal balls.
Okay. As we tend
who is
to
the
do.
bigger threat in the AL West? Knowing what we know now, and knowing what we know because we know, and we're smart, is Oakland or the Angels a bigger threat, or Houston or Seattle? But who is the bigger threat to upend the Rangers in their quest for AL West supremacy?
Well, first off, I would say we are arguably smart. I don't know how smart I am. I'm not going to law school. But anyway, that's my violin story of the day. I would say Oakland, and Jared Weaver is the X factor, I think. He's out at a crucial time because the Angels weren't playing well even when he was healthy, and he wasn't, his velocity's been down and everything. But when you look at them, it's okay, they have 3 really good hitters, a pretty good defense, and no pitching. They're just, I couldn't see them in a 7-game series out pitching the Rangers or, half a dozen teams in the American League. Oakland, I'm not very high on them just because they won so many games by 1 run and in extra innings. They, had a very star-crossed year like the Orioles. But I'm not that worried about them just because I don't think their pitching is going to sustain itself over the course of a year like it did last year. I mean, they really had Jared Parker. I will say he's better than a middle-of-the-rotation pitcher, but everyone else on their staff is either a MORP or a back-end starter, and they can get away with that pitching in Oakland half their games, but on the road they're just going to get I don't think they're going to be as effective as they were last year.
Yeah, have you seen the stat that Newberg likes to point out where Oakland, they have a winning record right now, I think. I honestly have not been keeping tabs on them as close as I should, but they have a winning record. Take away the 6 games they played against Houston, they don't have a winning record. Right. So you can go with the cliche that they like to espouse on a lot of radio shows saying the key to the West is Houston. You know what the key to winning the West is? Beating the rest of the teams in the West. Seattle's a key. Winning against the Angels on the road would be a key. Winning against Oakland is a key. This is going to sound terrible analysis, but you got to win games against bad teams. And Houston isn't the only bad team in our league. And I've really yet to see anything out of the Angels, despite my earlier predictions, that would suggest that they I could easily now, with knowing what I've seen out of the Angels so far this year, I could easily see them being a 500 team at the end of the season. Their pitching is abysmal.
I could see a scenario where they don't even make it to 500.
I mean, I think that their hitting will carry them to 500, and they're going to get some good games out of their pitchers. There's going to be nights when they get good pitching and bad hitting and win games, and there's going to be nights when they have awful pitching, which is pretty much every night, and they're just going to win 8 to 6 games or 10 to 9 games, just stupid scores, but they're going to win some of those games. So I can see them being, I mean, this is a worst-case scenario. Jared Weaver's velocity is indicative of something being more wrong, and provided they don't try to get Cliff Lee, which I don't know what bullets they have left in the chamber to try to get Cliff Lee, aside from just eating the entire contract. But, yeah, man, they're going to have a lot of, they have a lot of problems. So bigger threat, in my opinion, is the A's, but at this point, using the small sample size argument and using that kind of with an asterisk even, saying, okay, now we're learning something, I think the Rangers have this, and I think that as long as the Rangers continue to play like the 2010 Rangers did with that whole, we're going to grind your starting pitcher down, which they're actually doing right now as we speak. Vance Worley has pitched 1 2/3 and is up to 49 pitches. But if they can grind down pitchers like this, and they can grind through games and they get timely hitting, which is not always going to happen, but if they can do this a lot of the time, they're going to resemble the 2010 Rangers, and they're going to run away with this division. Plain and simple. They got to beat Seattle. They got to beat Houston. They got to beat the A's. They got to beat the Angels. They got to take care of business at home. Those are generic statements, and it sucks because I'm not using numbers, but overall feel-good statement about this is the Rangers are in a really good position. Their pitching, while maybe isn't the best in the league, they're anchored by an ace, and they have a couple of really good pitchers behind them, and they're only going to get better. So A's are there. They might throw some good numbers up every once in a while, but I really do think the Rangers have this.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a lot.
No, it's okay. I was going to make a point about this year, I think, is very reminiscent of the 2004 season in a sense. The only difference is the Rangers are used to winning nowadays. Back then, they had no, sphere of reference as far as success is concerned. But anyway, 2004 was the first year without Alex Rodriguez. And you kind of had the feeling all year long that they were playing with a chip on their shoulder, kind of just, to basically just to say, like, fuck you, Alex Rodriguez, Mm-hmm. And this year, there's Josh Hamilton and there's Michael Young. I genuinely think that the players liked Michael Young.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that they like Josh Hamilton. And he's the one, he was really the big, the prima donna, and, he went to the rival and blah, blah, blah. I don't think they care, really, that he's on the Angels. I just think they're out proving that they don't need him to win. A lot like they didn't need Alex Rodriguez, to win baseball games. And they won 89 games in 2004. I think this team is way better than that team, obviously, because that team overachieved probably by 10 games. But that's kind of like the impression I get so far. I think that they have a lot of like attitude this year, and we're not really used to that.
Mm-hmm. When Don Welke, this is another insight, when Don Welke came to the BP event, he kind of creeped in through the door, and I think about half the people in the room actually knew who he was. But Jamie Newberg turned to Don Welke and said, I want you to talk about Adrian Beltre's makeup a little bit. And aside from stuff I'll talk about later, just espousing the rave reviews for Beltre, which coming from Don Welke is a pretty incredible statement. He said, without mincing words and unequivocally clear, that Adrian Beltre is the leader of this team. As he goes, this team goes. And if you want to, you could tell me that Michael Young was a leader in the past, and that's fine. But if Adrian Beltre is the leader of my team, I'm feeling really good about my team.
Adrian Beltre is the man.
He is the man. And just to show this new... And I want to kind of point out something about our offense, too. They haven't maybe put up quite the sparkly numbers that we all have thought about the Rangers putting up in the past couple of years. But I think Buzz said last night, or maybe it was Nadell, the Rangers are the toughest team to strike out in the AL, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. And I want to go back to this last inning that just happened. This is real-time analysis. So for anyone who aspires to be as awesome as we are, this is how you do it.
This is how you do it, guys.
Okay, you had 6 batters come to bat against Vance Worley in the top of the 2nd inning. And I want to point out some critical at-bats here. Now, A.J. Pierzynski is replacing Mike Napoli. Mike Napoli struck out a lot. I know he's having a great year this year, but here's A.J. Pierzynski's at-bat. Ball, foul ball, foul ball, ball, foul ball, ball, foul ball. Then he grounded out. Okay, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pitches to Pierzynski. Now let's look at David Murphy. And as much as I rag on David Murphy, and I'm still going to, let's look at his at-bat. He had a ball, looking, foul, foul, ball, then he walked. That's a 9-pitch at-bat, I think. I need to recount it again, but that's a lot of pitches for an at-bat. And then I want to point out Leonis Martin, who we just gave high praise to. This shows how smart we are. A ball, strike, foul, 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 ball, then he pops out to second. We don't score on any of those plays I showed there, or I talked about. But between those 3 guys, that's over 20 pitches for 3 batters. And there's 3 other batters who came to bat in that inning. That's a really good approach to the plate. And I don't know if that's Madigan trying to really emphasize this in these guys, but man, it's pretty awesome we're not striking out as much as we used to. And we are absolutely wearing down pitchers, which is great.
Yeah. That's like the main... What?
That's a lot of analysis. I don't know if that's analysis overload.
No, I'm a nerd, man. I went straight to Fangraphs after you talked about strikeouts, and so far in Major League Baseball, the Astros, by a pretty wide margin, lead the major leagues in total team strikeouts with 207.
Oh, God.
All the way down at the bottom are the Royals and the Rangers, who share a complex in Surprise, Arizona, sharing secrets, obviously.
Hashtag.
And they are 1 and 2 as far as the best. Rangers have 119 strikeouts. The Royals 121. The difference between them is the Rangers have 68 walks and the Royals only 43. So the ratio is a lot better on the Rangers' end. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, when you replace Josh Hamilton with Lance Berkman, that's going to account for probably 4 or 5 spots in that list by itself.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
He's got a ridiculous career strikeout to walk ratio. It's amazing. I
mean, if you're an opposing pitcher watching Lance Berkman bat, that's got to be the most frustrating thing in the world.
Yeah. And it's just like, I mean, Madigan, remember, back in like 06, 07, 08, I don't even know how long he was there, but the Red Sox were like, they would perpetually just piss me off every time the Rangers played them because they had a bunch of high on-base percentage guys that would just hack, foul shit off all day and end up getting on base. And it was just frustrating because it was like, man, our pitchers it's like they're doing so well and they're not getting anywhere. So to be on the opposite side of that and have people be like, fuck, man, they don't have Josh Hamilton and Michael Young and all these other names anymore, but they're just as effective this way doing it,
Mm-hmm. Which is, it's a super nice, super quick shift in batting approach, which I really like. Right. Tepesh just had a shutdown inning. He's at 22 pitches through 2. Nice. Pretty awesome.
And the game runs like this. The only thing you really know is what you can put into words. Let's suppose I love some girl. Rapturously. Somebody says to me, would you really love her? Well, how am I going to prove this? Well, say, write poetry. Tell us all how much you love her, and we'll believe you. So if I'm an artist and I can put this into words and convince everybody that I've written the most ecstatic love letters ever written, they say, all right, okay, you really do love her. Love her. Love her. Love her. But supposing you're not very articulate. Are we going to tell you you don't love her? Surely not. You don't have to be very articulate to be in love.
All right, Eric, so now we reach that time in the episode where I should be studying, and we should do a little bit of looking into the future. with the Rangers in first place now, we're going to have about, 3 weeks, probably about 3 weeks, honestly, before we get a really awesome podcast back out there. Where do you see this team in 3 weeks, Eric?
I mean, I like the way we're pitching. I think we're second in the majors in ERA. Keep that up. I see no reason why we shouldn't be why we shouldn't have the stranglehold on this division throughout the year. We look like we are the cream of the division, and the Angels, who are probably second in talent, or maybe they do have more talent than us. Who I don't know, but they're down right now. So, got to take advantage of this next month without Jared Weaver.
I think we got to absolutely pummel them while they're down.
Yeah.
This is one of those situations where you can make your life a whole lot easier in the long run if you can bury them right now. We did our job. If you're a Rangers fan, you can't be any happier with the 2 series we played against LA as far as us doing our job. We've won 4 out of 6. We've won both series. We won't see them again until July, so they're going to have a lot of soul-searching to do, not against the Rangers, to see if they can pull anything out. As long as Pujols is hurting and Hamilton can't hit for anything above a 220, they're going to have a lot of trouble against pitchers. And if you're a Rangers fan, like Eric said, and like I've kind of echoed, there's a lot to be excited about, and you should be really impressed with how they've started this year. If you ever doubted John Daniels this offseason, you can pretty much put that aside. With his decisions he's made have really already, they've already bared fruit, which is pretty exciting. As far as my projection, did you want to comment on that before I gaze off into the distance? Go ahead.
Before you kick us out, I just pictured John Daniels doing his best Dennis Green impersonation, just slamming on the podium saying, they are who we thought they were. They didn't need to acquire anyone. The Rangers were still the best team in the West. This is expected. This is how they should be. Okay, I'm done being passionate.
No, I agree, and just I've said this many times. I'm becoming an old broken record now, and I'm just being teased. But listening to Daniels talk, he is very confident in this team right now. He has, just hearing him talk about the team he's put out there briefly, he is very confident in what he's assembled. And that's a guy who doesn't mince words either. He doesn't sugarcoat what he says. And if he thought there was something they needed, he probably would have said it. When he was presented with the question, he answered very frankly, which is encouraging. As far as the rest of the league, I would look. There's a few outliers here. I think Seattle is really bad. Wow. I was predicting them to be a lot better than they were.
75 wins, man. I told you.
Man, they're bad. They're really bad.
They suck. They can't play defense.
Yeah. Rahul Ibanez, man, what is going on there? Seriously, Seattle's really bad.
If you have Jason Bay, if Jason Bay is on your roster, you're probably not in love with your life.
Man. Anyway, I'm just kind of blown away on how bad Seattle is. They're going to compete with Houston, I think, to be bottom sellers in the AL West. But as far as other divisions go, Yankees had a good start. I think they're going to start to fade a little bit, especially with Teixeira and Jeter being out for an extended period of time. I think Detroit's going to... I don't think Detroit's going to blow anyone away with their win-loss record this year. But then again, I don't think Kansas City's going to stick around long enough to really challenge them. I think, rotational speaking, I think Detroit has a very good rotation. I think that's what's going to be the key to their longevity atop the AL Central. And now they have Papa Grande back, which if he can close out games, that's a huge help for them. That was my only concern for Detroit going into the year, which I'm not going to count on it.
Jose Valverde.
But
if he's your closer, man, oof. I would just use Joaquin Benoit or Phil Koch, Go with the matchups.
Joaquin Benoit's an adventure in itself. But as far as other
he's still got better stuff than Jose Valverde, though.
Than Valverde?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think they might actually trade. See if they can unload Porcello for bullpen help, because they might have to eventually.
I hope they get someone good.
Yeah, they're going to need to. And then I'm trying to think other divisions here. The NL West is kind of a cluster, if you ask me. That's a weird division with the Rockies leading it. And that's in April, too, when you would think that conditions would play to really horrible games there, but they're winning them, which is kind of surprising. Home field advantage or not, I don't know what you think about the Rockies. I don't really think much about the Rockies. I think there's other teams who are better in that division. I think Greinke being out is going to hurt the Dodgers. I think Billingsley getting Tommy John is going to hurt the Dodgers. So I think that kind of sets the stage for San Francisco to kick it into gear if Tim Lincecum could ever figure out what the hell he's doing on the mound, which is really frustrating watching him because I'm a big Timmy fan.
Yeah,
not against us, but man.
Yeah, Matt Cain's kind of struggled with his command so far, too.
I mean, if you've noticed league-wide, aces, aside from Darvish even, have had a little bit of trouble this year. Verlander's velocity is down, which really worries me if I'm a Detroit fan. That really worries me because his velocity is the key to his bread and butter. Cain has not looked like Cain. Kershaw's had a couple of rough outings. David Price, man, some of those outings he's had are terrible, and he's not getting any run support. Just while I'm hitting them all, King Felix has had a couple outings that have been a little bit questionable. His velocity is down also.
He seems like the kind of guy who can manage it, though.
Yeah, I think King Felix, as he gets older, he's going to be like a fine wine. He's not going to have the crisp bite that a really good Chianti that's really, you would describe as fresh and clean, but he's going to mellow out a little bit. I think he's going to turn into more of like a fine whiskey, where there might be something you could go to in a quick pinch that's going to get the job done even better than a really fine whiskey. But when you want to sit back and know what you're playing with and know what's in your arsenal, you can still get it done and you put out a good game. I think that's what King Felix is going to evolve into. Go ahead.
I was at the bar last night, and so I go to the bar and I asked this woman. Now, don't get me wrong. The scene here, we're at this place called Toby Keith's, and it's really only
Toby
a place.
Keith's. Proud Oklahoma.
Man.
Actually, he's from Moore, Oklahoma. Do you know where I'm living right now?
No.
I'm living in Moore, Oklahoma. The water tower, I shit you not. The water tower in Moore, Oklahoma says, hometown of Toby Keith.
Jesus.
And
Okay.
I've actually been to a couple Toby Keith concerts. He's a good entertainer. It's actually a lot of fun. So
Man.
that if you want to judge me, that's fine. But so what? He puts on a fun show.
Country's not exactly my thing, but I mean, this is the only point about Toby Keith's is that really the only reason to go there is just because there's cute girls everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so I go to the bar and I ask for a whiskey sour, and the bartender, who's in cut off short, she's cute woman, probably
girl.
about 30. She says, "Oh, do you just want well whiskey?"
Ugh.
Do I look like somebody who wants some fucking well whiskey? So anyway, I got some Jameson, so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
No, I've reached the point in my life where at least I like to tell myself I'm a little bit better than well whiskey. I know it's really pretentious, but if I'm going to drink, I'm going to drink something that's a little bit nicer. I have a little bit of self-respect.
I have no problem spending $8 for a drink that tastes better and is just better.
Yeah, no, you drink crap, you're going to feel like crap.
Yeah.
So, that's our little whiskey talk for the day, I guess.
Hashtag whiskey
I completely lost my train of thought there, Eric.
Oh, yeah, we were just talking about the league. You were running through the National League. I completely agree with you on the Giants. I think they're kind of in a similar position to the Rangers. I see them capitalizing on the Dodgers, who, like the Angels, are their chief competition, you'd probably think. I don't think the Rockies have enough pitching to sustain this, especially when it starts warming up. Let's see. I think the Cardinals, I still like them over the Reds in the Central. I think that Atlanta and Washington will even out, and that'll be a pretty close race. And I'm not as down on the Yankees as you are, I don't think. I think they're a pretty good team. I think they're about a second-place team this year. But I do think the Red Sox. I know. I think the Red Sox are the class of the East, and I thought that before the year. So
I think they have a little bit of extra motivation too. With the, Boston bombings are horrible.
Yeah.
But sometimes something like that. I mean, if you ever want to talk about intangibles, this is where you can really talk about intangibles. That's a really uniting thing for a team.
Mm-hmm.
And that team purged house, and they brought in some new guys, and that can really. It's a tragic event. But when you can have a city rally around you like that and really take it to heart, you take those games a little bit more personally. Sometimes Definitely. It's a little bit more than a job. And so...
well, yeah, I remember, watching the first game back in Boston. I tweeted out, I think in the top of the 8th inning, I said, or the bottom of the 8th, I said, cue the epic Red Sox comeback. But, I think, it was perfect. I mean, that's the way it should have ended.
Mm-hmm. But I think Orioles are going to be pretty good again this year. They have #grit. NL East, I think you are exactly correct on the Nats and the Braves evening out. I don't believe Steven Strasburg is going to be as bad as he's been this year. I'm actually a little bit shocked at how poorly he's performed. Yeah. And one of my favorite players actually is Ryan Zimmerman, and he has a case of the yips, which is kind of concerning because Definitely. If you remember Salto Amaki's time in Texas, once you get the yips, you always had the yips. It's all mental from there on out. And like I said, Ryan Zimmerman is just he's one of my favorite players. I don't know why, but last summer in DC, he seemed like kind of like actually a good Michael Young with power as far as the leadership skills. But
it's a good way to put it.
Yeah, no, I'm a fan of Ryan Zimmerman. I hope he figures it out, and I hope that division should be fun to watch down the stretch, in my opinion.
I've always wondered what a good version of Michael Young would look like.
A good version of Michael, so basically, leadership and talents is what you're looking for.
Yeah, someone who has, they're making $16 million a year, and they're getting paid for the actual, games, not just
Evan Longoria.
Leadership. Yeah, exactly. That's a fair one.
There you go.
I look at the Nationals a lot like I look at the Rangers. Organizationally, I think they both kind of figured it out around the same time. Mm-hmm. And, they have... Bryce Harper could totally be the MVP. I don't think that's too far out of the realm of possibility. And they just have a lot of cool players. I've always been high on Tyler Clippard, Bruce Rondon, and the third baseman who's up for Zimmerman right now. Mm-hmm. He's good too. I'm not very stoked on their middle infield, but they provide a lot of power, so that's nice. Yeah. And Jason Worth, OBP,
No, Jason Worth's cool. I like Jason Worth a lot.
Definitely.
But, you have any more thoughts, Eric?
Well, it's sad that you have to leave me again for X amount of days, but I don't know. Hopefully I have enough booze to make it through.
I think you should. And I think if our listeners are lucky, I think they might get a little Eric segment by himself. You think that might be possible?
Oh yeah, I think we will do that, and it won't be the same though. It'll just be
it'll be sad,
this buttery voice,
but
through the airwaves.
I'm not going to do an unplugged segment this time, just because the segments I want to talk about are going to take more time, and I actually need to go. But I want to kind of part with this little thought. One, Eric, I want to say thank you for another great episode. I think we're hitting our stride. Unfortunately, we're going to have to take a break.
Yeah.
But for all our listeners who actually are listening, and I want to say that I've actually had a couple people come up to me at law school saying, "Hey, do you do a podcast? I was listening to it the other day, and that was actually really interesting. It's awesome that you can do that." So for what it's worth, people are listening to it, and that's really encouraging. And for those who are listening, I want to say that we're planning some exciting things coming up, #exciting. One, you'll notice we have a placeholder logo, which is only going to get more refined, and we're going to kind of
we're going to incorporate more than 3 colors next time.
Yeah, but this is something, like I said, this is how I procrastinate. I make logos and stuff. But once all my friends...
I like it.
What?
Simple is the way to go. I like it.
Yeah, I want something clean. I think if we get a really good design, we could do less colors, but we'll see.
There you go.
I have a friend who should be doing this, but actually it's his birthday today, and I'm not going to bug him about it. But for now, this will have to do. But for all our listeners, we're going to try to get this up on iTunes, and that's going to be my number one priority after my finals and after my little rendezvous down into Florida for a week. After I get back, I'm going to try finding a hosting service and get an RSS feed up. And hopefully...
Because I am not as adept with electronics as Mr. Fullington.
I'm not great with it either, just I'm willing to sit down, and since I'll be bored, I guess, I'll figure it out. But I really want to make sure this gets out to as many people as possible. And for those people who have been listening from the start, I hope you've enjoyed this as much as we've enjoyed doing it and seeing how much better these things have gotten. Again, if you have any suggestions or comments or questions, you can comment on our YouTube page. You can send us an email at warningtrackpowerpodcast@gmail.com or hit us up, either of us, on Twitter, and we'd be more than happy to respond. Like I said, we have a lot of exciting material coming up. I'm going to talk about the Baseball Prospectus event I recently attended at Rangers Ballpark, and my 3 innings of baseball with Jason Cole and Jason Parks, which is pretty cool. And the Q&A with the Rangers deity, John Daniels. I guess Darvish is also a deity. And then the entrance of Don Welke. But we have a lot of good stuff coming up. Darvish is God. Let's just be honest.
All right, let's be real.
We have a lot of really good stuff coming up. Are you excited, Eric?
I am excited. And, I'm excited to get your finals handled, go to Florida, do your thing. I wanted to give a quick shout-out to Jeremy Blackwood, who's a loyal listener. If you're ever in Southern California, go check out Rosa Maria's. It's delicious Mexican food, so that's for him. Other than that, Ian, it's always dope talking to you, man. And, I'll be excited to get cracking on the new shit.
Sounds good, Eric.
All right, man.
Don't die, okay? Stay alive.
I'll try.
I'll see you in a couple weeks, man.
All right, man. Take care.
All right. And we'll see you all later. Bye-bye.
Look over yonder. What do you see? The sun is rising, most definitely. A new day's coming. Ooh, people are changing.